Hey everybody, David here, and today I want to do my list for the worst to best Batman movies from worst to best. You know what I mean. So let's get started here. If you want to know my opinions on each of these movies, just type in David Jordeo on YouTube and type in the movie that you want to see my review of, because I know for a fact that I've reviewed all these movies, no matter how terrible the old reviews are and how better my reviews in current days have been, or current years. Yeah, they're all out there. My opinions are there. My ranking videos I've done in the past, of course, but some of these movies I don't think have been included in my recent Batman list. Now, unlike some other people out there, I like to include not only the Batman movies, but his supporting characters as well. So, for an example, Joker and Catwoman are supporting characters, so the Joker and Catwoman are on this list, and also Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey are also on this list. Where? You'll have to find out. Now, when I say the Suicide Squad, I'm only talking about the first movie, because I feel like the first Suicide Squad heavily relied on Batman and his rogue gallery. The second Suicide Squad movie from James Gunn only had Harley Quinn in there, so I feel it was less Batman heavy. So I'm not going to count the James Gunn Suicide Squad, only the first one, because Batman not only makes an appearance, but a lot of his rogue gallery makes an appearance there. So let us begin with, there are 16 movies here. Let's begin with the worst, which is easily Catwoman, starring Halle Berry. Yeah, even Catwoman herself, Halle Berry, will admit that this movie was a disaster, which she accepted the Razzie nomination for the year that this movie came out. So, yeah, something has to be the worst, right? So, let's move on to number 15. I have Batman and Robin. Even though this is easily the weakest Batman movie, or even from his supporting cast who got their own movies, there are still some moments that are worth laughing at rather than laughing with. And if you're with the right group of people, you can probably have a good time with this movie. So, Batman and Robin, 15 on the list. Next up, I have Batman Forever at number 14. I was confused whether I should put this one at 14, because I don't think it's as bad as some people used to think. Although I have seen it gain a little bit more love in recent years, probably kids who were young enough to watch Batman Forever back then, who grew up watching it and loving it. Definitely, it's a soft spot for me because I was a huge Jim Carrey fan. I still am a huge Jim Carrey fan, and he made that movie. Val Kilmer, I think, is actually a pretty good Bruce Wayne. I like seeing Robin in a movie, right? Robin doesn't get utilized enough in these live action films. So it was actually cool at the time to really get to see a live action Dick Grayson Robin on the big screen with Batman. Hopefully another filmmaker will want to take a crack at Robin, but Matt Reeves has hinted that he might want to do a Robin story with Batman one day, so you'll never know. And Nicole Kidman was great in the movie too. Tommy Lee Jones maybe hammed it up too much, but for the most part, I can see they had a better balance of the drama and the campiness. So I like Batman Forever for what it is. Moving on to number 13, I have the first Suicide Squad movie, the one where Will Smith was playing Deadshot, who is a Batman villain. Obviously, the Joker and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is in this movie too. Batman has 2 or 3 scenes in the movie, so played by Ben Affleck. Yeah, this movie is down here because it was really thin on plot, but the characters are really enjoyable, and so that's why I put it above the first 3 movies that I just mentioned. So I give this one a decent pass. Moving on to number 12, I have the first theatrical cut of Justice League. I did not add Zack's, maybe I did. I just checked my list now, and yeah, it's probably up there somewhere. But yeah, the 2017 version of Justice League ain't that great. There's still some moments in there that I think, like, if people are hating it on now because we got Zack Snyder's version, I think that's unfair, because remember, we had our first thoughts, and you can go back and look at your own reviews if you've done any, to have it recorded on tape for history. Yeah, I thought the Justice League movie was okay, and I still think it's an okay movie. It's a very big disappointment, though, especially now that we know what it could have been. But for the most part, it gets a little decent of a pass. Even though Batman is probably not the highlight of the movie, because you can tell Ben Affleck was out of it by this point. For the most part, there were still some really nice moments with other characters. Moving on to number 11, I have the Adam West Batman movie. This movie was a product of its time, and you gotta love the jokes and the humors that they throw at you. Adam West has this charisma, and Burt Ward was great as Robin too, and I love the villains in this movie, from Cesar Romero's Joker, Frank Gorshin's Riddler, Burgess Meredith as the Penguin is great, and Julie Newmar as Catwoman was really great too. And seeing those four characters team up in this movie, because you didn't really get too much of those team ups in the TV series, but to see the four of them teaming up was a lot of fun. Even though this was the only time Julie Newmar played Catwoman, right? So because it was, I forgot one of the actresses, but I know Eartha Kitt also played it in the TV series, along with another actress who I'm forgetting. Hopefully it's not Julie Newmar that was in the series, and I'm mixing it up with someone else. But anyways, I enjoy the Batman 1966 series for what it is, and that's why I put it up there. You got to remember the time this movie was made in. I can see like kids watching it today, maybe not getting into it because maybe not getting the humor. But I think as you get older and you realize the type of show it is and the type of humor that it's doing, I think you do grow an appreciation for it to some degree. Moving on to number 10, I have the Birds of Prey movie, which focuses heavily on Margot Robbie. Black Mask is also in this movie, who is a Batman villain. And obviously the movie takes place in Gotham, so that's why I'm counting the Birds of Prey movie in this on this list. Harley Quinn specifically is a Batman character. So, and there are a couple of Batman references throughout the movie. So to me, it counts in this group, this category of movies. Moving on, I have the 1989 Batman movie starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. This movie, once again, a product of its time. To me, it's a little outdated, but it still holds up pretty well. I think there's some fun elements in there. Tim Burton definitely has his touch in the movie. Not as much as another movie that we're going to get to, but it was really interesting. I don't think Jack Nicholson is the best Joker that sometimes some people make him out to be. To me, there are other actors that I think are much better as the Joker, because Jack Nicholson's really just playing Jack Nicholson. I think everybody agrees with that up to this point. If you love Jack Nicholson, which I like Jack Nicholson a lot, obviously he's a fantastic actor, but if I'm watching a Batman movie, I want to see the Joker. You know, the clown prince of crime, the one who causes chaos. And he causes a little bit of chaos in here, but at times it feels like I want to have a party and not worry too much about killing people, even though he does a little bit of that. So moving on to the next movie on my list at number 8, I have Batman Returns. This one goes full out Tim Burton, and it's probably the reason why I actually do like Batman Returns more than the first Batman movie. When I was a little bit younger, like in my teen years, I think I did enjoy the 1989 Batman a lot more, but as time went on, I think Batman Returns ages better. Probably because it goes full Tim Burton, and this is what Tim Burton is just good at, just reaching out and making things weird. And Michelle Pfeiffer turns out a terrific performance as Catwoman, Selena Kyle. Her chemistry with Michael Keaton is also really great. Danny DeVito, I'll admit, not my favorite Penguin, but he is. It's an interesting choice, and it works for the movie that it's in. And Christopher Walken is fantastic in the movie as well. Moving on to number 7, I have Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix. I think this is a really good movie. I'm sad that it didn't crack my top 5 or anything, but there's just so many really good Batman movies coming up. And Joker was really creepy and eerie, and as an artistic film, I give it props on that. But as a Batman film or a Batman-related film, I think that that's why I prefer some other movies a little bit more. Moving on to number 6, I have Batman Begins, one of the best origin movies of all time. I love Batman Begins, and you're probably thinking at number 6, so what movies are ahead of this? I have weird taste. Sorry, everybody. But yeah, Batman Begins. I put it here. I feel like it dropped a little bit on my list because I used to have the Dark Knight trilogy all close together at one point, but I feel like there's been movies in recent years. One day I'm gonna have to do my top 20 superhero movies to show you guys, because I think that list has changed a lot too since then. But yeah, Batman Begins is still a great movie. It's still a great origin, and I love it. So Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, as he's known for in this movie, played by Liam Neeson, is fantastic. Well, even though he's a more realistic Ra's al Ghul, he's great. And obviously, this is the movie that made me a huge fan of Christian Bale. So one of the best actors, I think, working today. Moving on to number 5, I have Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yes, I love Ben Affleck in this movie. He is so great. I'm also a huge Superman fan, so when you're telling me we're getting Batman and Superman in the same movie together, and I love the way Henry Cavill plays Superman, to me, this was a really cool, underrated film. I love both the theatrical version and the extended version of this movie. Of course, it's not my favorite DCEU movie. That one is not on this list, but it definitely is a DCEU movie that's probably in my top 5, as well as my top 5 Batman movies. So I'll say that much. Moving on to number 4, I have Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yes, I like this one even more than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I think this is the Justice League movie we should have had. And I think the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and the ratings on IMDb and everywhere show that this should have been the movie. It should have been cut down to 3 hours, even though every time I watch this movie, I watch the full 4 hours straight, and I don't get bored at all. Maybe there are some scenes that could have been cut out, but for the most part, I think it's a really well made, probably Zack Snyder's, one of his best movies that he's made. And it's sad that we won't see a continuation, although from what I heard, there's some things that make me a little nervous on where it could have went. But for the most part, I would have been intrigued to see where he would have taken these characters and the storylines that he sets up in this movie. I would have been interested, but I think some of the things that I was hearing would have made me a little nervous. So moving on to number 3, I have The Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises, to me, is one of the best conclusions to a trilogy ever. I'm one of those people. I know most people put Batman Begins over Dark Knight Rises. I unapologetically love The Dark Knight Rises more than Batman Begins. I think it's a great ending. I think the cast is great. Tom Hardy as Bane is amazing. I love Talia in the movie. I think Anne Hathaway is terrific as Catwoman. I maybe like Michelle Pfeiffer a little bit more, but Anne Hathaway is terrific as well. And Christian Bale, man, and Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, the entire cast is just Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Man, such a great cast, such a great conclusion, and it's gonna be hard to top the trilogy. I'll admit there are some superhero movies, maybe one other trilogy that has surpassed the Dark Knight trilogy now for me, but I'll leave that. I think I've said it before in the past, but whatever. But yes, the Dark Knight trilogy is still one of the all-time greatest trilogies out there for me. Finally, the last 2. What is at number 2? I have the most recent movie, The Batman. This one took me a little bit of time to think about it. I'm still struggling if I should have put this at number 1 or 2, but I feel like putting it at number 1 is maybe too fresh in my mind. So I felt like, you know what, put it at number 2. I think you're gonna regret if you put it at number 1 today, because you're gonna look at this a year from now and said, why did I put that one at number 1? I have a feeling it belongs at number 2 though. It definitely is a really good rival to The Dark Knight, but I don't think it hits those notes the same way The Dark Knight does, which is, I already spoiled it, didn't I? But let's get on focus with The Batman. The Riddler is so creepy in this movie. I just did my whole review, so go watch that if you want. But yes, this movie is the detective story of Batman that we have been waiting for, and what the cast is fantastic. You know, these last couple of movies, the cast has been fantastic in all of them. Even Batman v Superman and just Zack Snyder's Justice League. Batman Begins, obviously. Joker had a really great cast as well. The Tim Burton movies. like all of these movies have great casts. It's amazing the kind of caliber that these movies attract, the acting talent. And Zoe Kravitz, man, she's fantastic. Paul Dano is so creepy as the Riddler. I didn't even mention Colin Farrell or John Turturro in my review, which I should have. Both of them were great in this movie as well. Yeah, this is a fantastic movie. But obviously, my number one, which I spoiled because I'm so excited, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight. How can you beat The Dark Knight? I think The Dark Knight has everything that a Batman movie should have. It has a great balance of the detective stuff. I really like the Batman because it focuses more on the detective stuff, which is really intriguing. But this one has, The Dark Knight has the detective stuff too. It doesn't focus heavily on it like the Batman, but it has it. And it gives us enough action, which I think the Batman lacks on and doesn't need. I hate saying it like that because I know if I say, oh, it lacks on action, that means it's not as good. No, you don't need action to have a good movie. You just need to have a good movie. And that's why I say it rivals it. And that's why I'm saying that it's really tough to compare them because they're similar in some ways in tone and stuff, but they're different in many ways as well because they focus on different aspects of what makes Batman great. And the Joker, man, Heath Ledger as the Joker. I mean, you can't go wrong with that character. I heard somebody say this once, is that when you look at Batman's rogue gallery, all his supporting characters, they practically write themselves. And it's so true with a lot of these movies, especially in my top 10 here. They practically write themselves. And you can see that the writers who are writing each of these movies, especially when you get into these top 10, that they're having a great time writing these characters and playing with the story and playing with this world. And something just had to be number one. And I feel like The Dark Knight does that the best. We get some really great action sequences, some really great moments, some really great character moments. It's a fantastic movie all around. A lot of these movies in the top 5, 10, whatever, are fantastic movies. So Dark Knight is number one for me, though. And who knows? Maybe as time goes on, maybe I will put the the Batman at number one. But really, I wanted to control my expectations as much as I can, and that's why I'm putting the Batman in number two, and the Dark Knight remains at number one for me as the ultimate Batman film. So comment below, guys. Tell me, what are your favorite Batman movies? You can add in the supporting movies too, like the Joker and Catwoman movie and Birds of Prey and whatever. Just make sure it's heavily Batman related or his supporting characters are heavily featured in the movie. The reason I didn't pick the Suicide Squad, the second one, is because Harley Quinn's the only Batman type character in there, and she shares the screen equally with everybody else, and that's why the second Suicide Squad movie wasn't on my list. Only the first one, because it had like Killer Croc, Harley Quinn, the Joker, Batman himself shows up in that one. That's why the first Suicide Squad movie was on my list, just in case anybody's still wondering why it was on here, even though I explained it earlier. So with that being said, tell me your list in the comment section below. Until next time, everybody, I hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Have a great conversation in the comments, and until next time, take care.